Hello, welcome back to the Double Swing. The Austin Major has continued to be a treacherous place for those trying to pick successful teams. I think the Stage 2 might have been the worst performing Pickem in a long time. I think at least since Paris, which was wrought with upsets and other nonsense. For us, it was a mixed bag. Both myself and the guest only picking out one correct team. Our guest going all in on Falcons, even decided to be first pick just so he could get Falcons. And yeah, that ended up going pretty poorly. I myself only having 3D Max pulling through, but of course Yumi with a perfect, not quite, but close to perfect repeat of his previous Stage 1 score, 3 for 4 this time, only OG letting him down. That Virtus Pro pick, which you so desired, so loved, neither one of you even willing to make a case for why it was a good pick. I had to do that for you. And it comes through. Of course it does. I'm so tilted.
I ended up making a good argument in the end. I'm pretty sure I made an argument. It's just I still didn't expect it to happen, but I feel good about it now.
Yeah, Hawker refusing to believe. But hey, we've got another guest here. We've got another Swiss stage to try and pick out from another 16 teams. Well, 8 of them we're very familiar with, as we've just watched them make it to this stage. But it's going to be, I think, another tough set of picks to make looking through this list, especially once you get beyond that sort of elite trio that we're now left with. BDog, welcome back to the show. We went through your score pre-show. You were talking about how you couldn't remember how well you did last time. You're worried you wouldn't do well. You went 2 for 4 last time. I think repeating that would be an upgrade, based on what the majority of us have been scoring at this major. So yeah, have you been following it? How much have you been disappointed by your teams you've picked? How's your pick'em going? Basically, is what I'm asking.
I don't want to talk about the pickems. I didn't even get the first stage right on the pickems. I don't think. I think I got like 4 or 3. It was terrible. I didn't have enough faith in Lim Vision. I didn't have enough faith in Legacy, obviously, and they've now made it through to stage 3. So fair play to them. I've been watching quite a lot of the major, but then I got annoyed after the pick'ems, so I just stopped. I stopped watching for a little bit, and then I started just randomizing in the game for all my pick'ems now, because I thought it would know better than I would, and it still doesn't. So no one knows what's going on really, not even the random number generator.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, unfortunately, no random number generator to help you here today. You're going to have to make your own picks, and you have chosen to go first. So come on, lead us off. Surely there's a team you can pick here for a guaranteed point in this Swiss.
It has to be Vitality, right? Like I wanted to go first, and I'm doing the classic Hawker where I'm going first because I'm all in on Vitality. But I mean, come on now, 30 series winning streak. They're winning literally everything. They only lost to Aurora at the start of the year. It feels like they're actually playing better, and it feels like they've weirdly got this aura around them now that is scary to play them. And I think a lot of teams that have made it through stage 2, whilst they've got confidence coming into stage 3, they're probably beyond expectation now. So a lot of the teams going up against Vitality are like, oh no, it's Vitality. And Vitality will be, having this objective in the front of their minds for such a long time now. Every single event prior to this was probably a warm-up in anticipation for Austin. Then they keep building, they keep snowballing. And given the way that some of the stage has gone, especially with Falcons now being removed out of stage 2, the fact that they can't even get through stage 2, you look at this and you think this is Vitality's major to lose 1,000,000% of the time. So it's a no-brainer. I don't want to ramble on for too long. Vitality are winning, therefore Vitality good.
Yeah, kind of hard to argue with that case, especially the closing sentiment. Yeah, they're weird because it does feel like they're kind of due a loss very soon. I mean, they've had a lot of close calls in this 30 series win. Yeah, I mean, but they've had maps that they've lost, and they've had maps where they've barely squeaked through. They've had like crazy big plays to secure those series. So it does feel as though, even if we're thinking about from a Pickem's point of view, like that 3-0 is kind of in jeopardy in some way. And the only way you can really argue against Vitality being like the number 1 seed and best selection you can have at this stage is mainly in the playoffs, where, because they've crafted and created a lot of space within this season that has just been Vitality's season. They need the hallmark of a major to solidify their era. And it does mean that, that added pressure, the understanding that could be a thing, is really the only avenue I can even really attack on Vitality at the moment, because the players look really comfortable in the way that the roles have ended up working out, and they're getting better at those spots as well, as we've seen kind of from tournament to tournament.
Yeah, obviously there's no Counter-Strike reason right now to pick against them.
Yeah.
Even their best sort of rivals, the 2 seed, the 3 seed, I say coming in, MOUZ, Spirit, those kinds of teams, don't have a track record to show that they can actually go out and challenge them. The closest match they had in the last, sort of couple of events was either that semi-final against Falcons or that prior grand final against Falcons. They're not facing them. So realistically, you need to step up from MOUZ. Maybe maybe Spirit can give them a challenge. They've not played each other in a little bit, and Spirit have been absolutely crushing everyone they faced at weaker events, nonetheless. But still, they've been playing incredibly tight CS and delivering. So maybe there's something there, but look, the reason I could make a case to not pick Vitality, to not be so confident, is that sort of, surely now they lose. Surely now, with the fact that we are coming into BO1s, now we're coming into, coming off the back of this huge streak, this is finally the bogey event. This is the maximum pressure. It might have alleviated some pressure if they had just dropped a group stage BO3 on the way here. But that's not a real reason, right? That's just Fugazi storylines types things. In terms of the actual CS, there's no reason not to pick them. They're the perfect pick as the number 1. Obviously, there's nothing to fault them on. They're playing explosive CS. They've got a lot of fraggers, great team play coordination, utility usage. I think Apex has got a ridiculous flash assist per round stat right now. It's like 0.15. That's almost as good as an entire team. Like just himself. Yeah. So they're doing everything right in terms of playing good CS, proper CS, and having star players deliver. That's not. We can even get into like the specifics of just ZywOo's play for a whole 10 minutes about how he's now rifling and playing anchor spots on certain rounds. He's like, I've never seen this sort of thing from a star AWP. And that's because he's not. He's just evolved into this like amorphous, rollless sort of hybrid blob that just walks around swallowing up enemies. Like he's just killing people in any position with any weapon. It's been a revelation. It's been a magnificent thing to watch, this Vitality. It would really, piss in the soup if they don't win this event. Like to end the season for them getting upset would be terrible. So I can't even wish for this pick to be wrong. They have to go and win this.
I'll be actually really quite disappointed if they don't win the whole event, because for a storyline perspective, the fact that they're going on this massive streak, and we haven't really seen that since Astralis. We had it a bit last year with NAVI, but it was like they were making grand finals and then they sort of fell off and they weren't actually able to sort of claim the titles. Now we kind of get it again in 2025 in CS2, in a game that has evolved so much, in a game where mechanics are a lot more relevant, but at the same time we're still seeing a higher level of team play. We're still seeing new things being discovered. We're still seeing this innovation with smokes, and I really would like it, I think, for the storyline of Counter-Strike if Vitality won this event, because it would really imprint a lot of Apex's legacy as well, which I think is cool, because I've been a fan of Counter-Strike for years and seeing that. And also, selfishly, British on the team, Mezzi needs to win a major, so let's get him a major, and then I can shut up about it.
Yeah, the first UK CS major that isn't just the org is based in the UK, because technically, or by extension, you could claim a whole bunch of UK majors.
No, we can't
just
do
based
that.
on the org.
It has to be players. It can't do Fnatic.
Yeah. It can't just be the club, a la football.
All I'm saying is that, when you get into a pug and they see British flag, sometimes you just get attacked for it. Like, who's the best British player you have? And you can tell they don't watch Counter-Strike because it's like, Mezzi exists, but when he's a major winner, it's kind of impossible to not have known, that he's actually at the top of the scene.
Yeah, that'd be some desperate cope, though.
Yeah.
But okay, yeah, that's the no-brainer pick to start things off. I now have to follow that in the number 2 slot. Oof, I can't do as good, let's put it that way. But I think I'm going to pick a favorite. I'm going to pick my favorite to upset Vitality, essentially, in terms of teams that are still remaining, still available. I'm going to take Spirit. For me, MOUZ, I guess they could be as dangerous as Spirit if someone on the team played better, like was a true superstar. But I don't have to if or maybe about Spirit. I have 2 superstars, and then the rest of them can kind of fill in the details, throw the flashbangs, die. So it's not always part of the plan, but at least they'll be doing something. Team Spirit have been on a run recently, winning their last event, looking absolutely rampant with something like a 57% round win percentage. Like, they've just been putting up a sort of generational run building up to this, mostly off the back of Donk having some of the most, there's no real word for it, just unfathomable fragging output possible. Across 2 events, he's got a 30% multi-kill rate, which is just incredible. Like, I can't even... I'll give you another reference to understand this. They have the same multi-kill rate right now of these last couple of events as Vitality. They have 3 players who are far below average in multi-kill rate. That's how much those top 2 are carrying them up and pulling them up into relevancy. They have got 2 players basically cancelling out 3 anchors. 3 players, just support players, botting them down in the fragging charts. That's how OP their carries are. And to win this major, I genuinely believe they just need Chopper and Magix to not shoot the wall. Shoot an opponent at least 1 or 2% more than you usually do, and you've actually got a chance to win this whole major. Because as much as people often malign Chopper, call him a bad IGL, I mean, he's got Donk. How could he not be winning everything? I mean, I feel like a lot of his achievements with complete rookies have gone very underappreciated when you look back and took kids to their first big event and won Katowice. Kids plural, because Zontic's, often forgotten, came out of the academy with Donk. These are not experienced veterans. These are not big names. He took them to the top immediately and has achieved a lot considering their youth and experience. I think this team is primed to be the upset candidate at this event. It would be disappointing. I agree with the narrative. But they are my other 3-0 pick in this Swiss stage. And they are, pound for pound, I think, as potent as Vitality when it comes to especially dealing with the chaff that exists in this 16-team pool.
Yeah, they're definitely hard to argue against. I mean, Spirit definitely have firepower and they have the ability to be better. It's just, it is sad to see that Magix is both such an important piece, but also a liability on this roster. Like he seems like a glue guy for this squad in a way that, you know, Chopper can lead them, but I don't think he's actually sort of in charge of the spirits of Team Spirit in a way. Like Magix does seem like he controls more of the emotional side of things, which is, I think, very important, especially when you have Shiro and you have Donk, who are both a bit charged emotionally. Like Shiro can sometimes disappear in those big games, and Donk, if he's not off to a roaring start, he gets like it's very visible frustration from him because those 2 are the most important pieces, and they know if one goes missing, the game is over, basically. So it is a bit tragic in a way. I do think they've had difficulties against teams within the top 5 is where Spirit currently find themselves. Like, I mean, like they've lost to Falcons, they lose to Vitality, they lost to MOUZ, which are, you know, very much teams that we should have as like favorites regardless this year. Mm-hmm. But they also just haven't played as much as some of the other teams this year, because they have intentionally skipped out on events, partially because of club share or partially because they wanted the time off. And it's not actually reflected in results for them necessarily. But they have won a trophy this year. And yeah, against the teams that are beneath them in the rankings, they don't usually struggle. So they're, I mean, a very solid candidate, but I expect if they don't place top 4 at this major, they will make that change. I mean, they probably should already be considering making a change for either Magix or Zontix in some capacity anyway.
Yeah. Listen, like, I actually think Zontix has stepped up a fair bit. I think in the last 2 events I've been watching him play, I think he's been actively making decisions that are a little bit more out of his comfort zone. Because when you watch Zontix, just in general, he's very linear by the book. He very much will not make mistakes. He'll play more for the, I guess, percentages of rounds rather than actually relying on the fact that he's going to be confident and make a play that will earn Spirit around, because obviously Spirit are so dependent on Donk and Shiro. But I've been noticing Zontix actually going and kind of stepping in the mid rounds and sort of pushing making that extra step and having a bit more belief in himself. And I really like that. And in the same breath, I think Chopper should be actually being a little bit more confident when he's on rifles, because when you see him play with the SMG, it is ridiculous how aggro he is, and whether that's on a full buy, whether that's against an eco. But you guys are both right. It has to come from within Chopper and Magix, because I actually think Zontix is going to play fine this event. We know what Donk's going to do. We know what Shiro's going to do. That's boring. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the fact that Chopper is the in-game leader, is the brains of the operation. Remember, before Donk, before Zontix, before IM Katowice, we also had Team Spirit making it to the major quarterfinals with Siren, with Wonderful at the time, who was a very unknown sort of AWPer that then got brought in by Navi. You got Siren that's now on Bet Boom that just left it in stage 2. Like these players who had potential, and Chopper has managed to forge them and bring something clearer. So it should be better with Donk. It should be better with Shiro. It would be better with Zontix if he keeps being a little bit more proactive. But quite frankly, one of Chopper and Magic's needs to not be shit. And like they'll be a lot better. And the only thing I worry about for Team Spirit is, and it's not even like what I can't comment on it from an objective point of view because I don't know all the ins and outs and what goes on behind a team. But if the rumor mill was true about them not wanting to boot camp as much because they were worried that they'd fight, I actually kind of understand that a bit because of the highly strung emotions compared to like Robot Zontix, and like he just won't care about anything, and that could probably wind up a few individuals. And if Magic's really is just that one hype man, then I wonder how good of a practice they will have. I wonder how much they would have worked. So I know they would have prepped with Hallie. I think that's another question mark I have to go to that next stage. It's like how they keep speaking about how influential Hallie is and how much prep Hallie does. How much of that is Chopper and Hallie? How much of that is Chopper actually getting his flowers as well? There's all these little niggly bits that I worry about with Spirit. But at the end of the day, you got Donk, you got Shiro. They're going to probably place top 4, top 6 at bare minimum.
Yeah, that feels like the bare minimum. And yeah, I mentioned it. It has to be the first thing you think of when you think about Spirit. It's just the fragging difference between their best and worst players is alarming. And a lot of the time, I often get told that Magic's has the most horrible roles, and you could never possibly envision a player doing better. I watched the demos. I'm no clown. Yes, he could. Many players could play better than he has in his roles and his spots. And often I find Zontix takes a lot of flack for the wrong reasons on the opposite side, where it's like, I watched the demos. He's really smart. And generally, there's a reason he can get away with having such a low headshot rate in terms of the actual bullets he lands and still actually win the number of fights he does. And that's because he's shooting people in the back, in the side. He's catching them out on their own pushes. He's out like timing them, seeing the kind of gaps there are in the defense and just, occasionally pushing through them. He's actually very smart. Sure, he could aim higher. But those fights he's losing where he could aim higher are not the ones that are going to decide rounds time and time again. It's those opening fights Chopper is often set up to take. It's those times in a round where Magic's could push something, could hit a headshot, panics, whiffs, dies, and then someone else to get a double kill trade to make the round viable. Those are the two players that are my key focus point.
I think from the perspective of Zontix, I mean, the problem I think people will have with him and maybe have not vocalized properly is that he is what I would consider a win more type of player. Like the round conditions are already set by Donk or the exec, and Zontix is getting a lot of kills on position, and sure that can win you more rounds and they'll go for less post plants or what have you, but he's not actually like a win condition. Like you think about players that are good at lurking and good at playing extremities, they actually create opportunities a lot of the time. Zontix actually isn't that type of player. Like he doesn't craft or create opportunities unless the rest of the pack is behind him. So in a way, it's almost the same criticism I have of Shiro, is that sometimes you want them to just do more with how good they are and like how intelligent they can be, but their scope or their ability realm is so limited at the moment. Like there has to be an expansion of that, and you thought that would happen with experience or more time, and it just kind of hasn't culminated in that fashion. Instead, we're just using Donk as the band-aid because he's so damn good.
I wonder if it will this major though, right? Because as I said, I've definitely seen him want to do that, and it's almost like he's on a leash a little bit with some of Chopper's calls, because obviously the calls are so tailored to setting up Donk Shiro to the point where maybe there isn't enough room in the mid round to facilitate a specific timing like that. I definitely think Zontix has got the capacity to do that, and I wonder if that's the next reinvention of Spirit. If Spirit can get better because we are now it sounds simple, relying on more pieces, but genuinely, this has been a cog that has been stuck for them for so long, where you get so tunnel vision into, we've got Donk, we've got Shiro. Well, actually, guys, we need the rest of the team, and Vitality is the bulletproof case example of that.
I thought the problem is I think they already explored that. Like they shifted some of the responsibilities. I remember like Cologne last year, kind of heading into Shanghai, where Donk wasn't taking as many entries anymore, like actually hard-facing entries. They actually wanted him to play more late rounds because they couldn't rely on Zontic's Magics as a duo to always close rounds. And then Magic had that crazy final in Shanghai, and we're just like, okay, maybe this, Spirit won the major. They've cracked the code. They finally figured it out, and it's just, it's again not translated that well into mainly games against the top 3, top 4 within this year, unfortunately.
Yeah. Magix hasn't shown a consistent ability to replicate that. As much as I kept getting yelled at, I found in comments, whenever I'd say I'm still cutting Magix, everyone was blindsided, just blinded by that one final. Like that grand final just sold them on him. And yeah, actually, just to touch on, before we move on, Shiro, one of the only AWPers or stars to ever put up near enough 0.8 KPR and still get told he's not doing enough. I always find that hilarious, I'm going to be honest. His fragging output has been insane this year, and he's just been absolutely slept on because he doesn't aesthetically please quite as much, I think, is the problem.
He's just not active. Like, he's very fast on rotates, and he gets a lot of kills on rotates. I just don't... I don't know. He doesn't... His opening engagements are so low for an AWPer.
Yeah, I don't know. I think people have the same issue with Shiro as they do with Zontix, but they vocalize it more with Zontix because they basically do their job.
Also, they just see the numbers and they just think, wow, his numbers are not bad. So
yeah,
I can't flame him that hard.
But also, if he's got a 15% opener, you got to also think about the fact that why would he be risking his life to go for openers so much when you know that Donk is going to get a guaranteed headshot like 90% of the time? Like it sounds silly, but when you break Counter-Strike down, it's like its most bare bones. Are you going to risk Shiro when you know he can be very good in the mid to late round, or are you going to put Donk out there who more often than not is just going to get the entry anyway?
Yeah, no, there's a rationale to it all. But yeah, just felt like poking that in there because, slept on AWPer time and time again. He's actually been outstanding this year. But yeah, Yumi, you now have 2 picks back-to-back. Still a very open field.
Yeah, I'm going to go with MOUZ because they have only lost to Falcons and Vitality. With the exception of the first event that they played with Berlin in-game leading at Cluj-Napoca, at Cluj, they have only lost to Falcons and Vitality. That's it for the rest of the season. So the past 4 months, those are the only 2 that they have lost to, and that to me is enough to say that, I mean, they're on the cusp of winning trophies. They just cannot get past that final hurdle. Like everybody below them is insignificant. Torji, it may be honestly, he's in the top 3 conversation for AWPers this year. With the way that he's playing, especially on CT sides. Sure, on T, it can still be a little bit of a struggle, but he's been better under Brolin. And
Thank you.
And as much as the Brolin in-game leading thing I'd hoped would flop, their mid-rounding is actually way better than it ever was. I think it's something I've talked about before, but they always craft outs. They always find a way out of a 3v3 or a 3v4 deficit. They create opportunities really well. I don't think there's a single piece that actually can't step up in those moments. And to be honest, a lot of the times it is actually Brolin that finds one of those crafty solutions. So yeah, they're just a really hard team to put down. They will slide underneath the door where you think you've shut it. And it's what makes them... It makes them a fun team to watch. Between that and the fact that Xerxan is also a fantastic sort of entry role player, They just have a lot of stopping power and enough creativity to see rounds through.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about MOUZ, as you say, is the fact that it feels like they've definitely got more options, and I think Spinks has definitely helped with that as well. And I think he might have brought a lot over from not only Vitality but also from his time in ENTS, because you're right. It just feels like they've got more tools at their disposal now. And I'm glad you mentioned Xerxan, because there was a time, I think towards middle of last year / back end of last year, people were calling out Zerjian, and they were saying he hasn't hit the same level we're used to seeing out of him. And that's because he was dropping like 1.2s, 1.25s pretty consistently, and it was a lot of reliability for him. And I'm glad now that, as you say, that the fact that MOUZ have got a very high floor is pushing them through a lot of these games where a lot of the other rosters are inconsistent. And this is a very shrewd pick from you, because not only are they number 2 in terms of VRS, but also it just makes the most sense. They've only lost to Vitality and Falcons, and Falcons aren't here. So who are they? Are they going to beat Spirit? Probably, because they have been. They've got a good track record for it. I don't see any other team really challenging them apart from, to be honest, maybe like a backdoor FaZe, but then you're still relying on like FaZe and their shenanigans. So in terms of consistency, MOUZ are right up there with Vitality, except they can't beat Vitality. Like, that's how narrow the margins are.
Yeah, they are an outstanding team right now. Realistically, it feels like almost they've gone from this, like, you know, Shuhei-led team into, I mean, I don't know if I'm just misreading a vibe, something, or I'm seeing something in player cams and I'm reading into it, but it feels like I'm looking at a team now like multiple leaders and a lot of voices. And it's almost being done communally, like the actual leadership. And I think having a player like Spinks, who has a decent idea of what's going on his T side, you know, he likes playing off of players and he plays off them quite well. Alongside Xerxian, a lot of ideas T side, Torji, a lot of ideas CT side. It's just evened out the load and just kind of made it quite easy for Brolan to lead through this section. I think that's why it's continued to work. I don't think he's secretly been a great IGL this entire time. I just think they're in a very good place right now in terms of the way the players are communicating and the way they're playing out these ideas. Now, the one thing you have to rely upon if you want MOUZ to go and win this event, I mean, make it out of this Swiss, probably, but to actually go deep, I think is a repeat of this sort of Dallas level Spinks and Torji, plus a bit more out of Xerxian, because then you still have to go and beat Vitality. That wasn't enough. They still need to have that extra gear to beat Vitality. I just don't think they have it. That's the problem. If I could rely on Torji on the T side to have more presence, I'd probably be happy with it. But instead, I need Xerxian in the playoffs, because he hasn't dropped off immensely in terms of his impact stats, but in terms of his actual overall sort of rating, the amount of times he's taking empty deaths, that stuff gets a bit worse in the playoffs. If I had a bit more from Xerxian, especially on that T side, I think I'd be happy to call them as my number 1 like upset pick. But instead, I'd rather rely on the fluke I've already seen, as it were, in terms of having Magix or Chopper help Donk relative to, rather than rely on Xerxian to just be a playoff dog, like magically almost come to the fore. They've had a lot of struggles finding the same impact on especially their T sides in playoffs. I think that's going to be a key issue.
I think that's interesting. Sorry, Michael.
No, you're okay.
I think it's the opposite, because of how consistent they've been, and I spoke about their floor, and as you say, the fact that they've got multiple leaders. I actually think if GymFat is like 5-10% better, which is maybe a big ask, but like 1.12 rated, just on the surface of it. If I know what GymFat can do, and I've been watching him since tier 2, and I see that he's just translated it to tier 1. If we get like 5% Jimmy, maybe even 10% a bit of a stretch, 5% Jimmy, I think they go ahead and they can win a BO3 against Vitality. I think they can actually upset if the floor, which we know it can be this consistent. So I think it's actually a lot more on Jimmy.
I was actually going to say something very similar, and I think my problem is that Jimmy and Xerxian are both pieces that kind of go missing in those bigger games. Like when we're seeing them in the grand finals, or we're seeing them against FaZe or Falcons or Vitality, both those pieces struggle so much, and it feels like Xerxian just struggles to get the engine roaring. Like he'll still get a few rounds of impact here or there, but Jimmy can actually just go entirely missing, which is kind of what sells him short to me. Like I've never really been that much of a I've never really bought in on Jimmy too hard. Like he was okay, is kind of how I always saw him, and I don't necessarily see that translating well as his career is continued to develop. Like I thought he would get past the hurdles of mentality and playing overly linear. I think he's a player that gets anti-stratted very hard, and he suffers for it. So I almost want to see him break out of his shell, but it's just not happened. And even if they're not going to his sides of the map, like he's not been reliable enough in clutches for me to feel confident in his play. Like if he's supposed to be the next Rops or the next whatever star anchor type player, you need to be able to clutch, and he doesn't show the capacity to pull through on those.
Yeah, okay. I see the I see what you mean as far as Jimfast specifically. It's just for me that Spinks is a late round player, and that's why I feel like he kind of fills that void of not necessarily winning clutches or having great anchoring moments, but just closing rounds down, sweeping things under the rug. That's what made him great on Ents. Initially, you know, playing off someone else who's taken a little bit of attention, he comes in and bangs everyone out. Same way I think Frozen tends to thrive as well, where someone else just needs to hold the attention just that second longer for him to perfectly just fill the void in a round and sweep it all up. I think that's kind of how, in my mind, I see Spinks currently, when he's playing his best, is, you know, kind of thriving. I just need Xertion on the front end of it, the guy taking that attention, just to have a little more impact, just to do a little more. Maybe you could even ascribe it to Brolan if you wanted, but that was my primary concern. But okay, you've got another pick. Do you like an underdog here?
Oh, you're trying to coax? You trying to manipulate me here?
I'm just curious because, you know, we've had 3 straight favorite picks. Obviously, the top 3 favorite picks. These are the 3 teams remaining of the 4 we said had a realistic chance of winning this major. I'm just curious if you're going to keep looking for that favorite value.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I think I'm gonna go FaZe here. Mainly to make it to the playoffs. I don't know if I necessarily believe in them winning the major, but they're still just a team that pulls off crazy rounds. Like, they had a lot of close calls in stage 2, and I won't shy past that. I know that they scraped through, but that's classic FaZe. You can't ever put this team 3-0. You can't ever expect them to go through clean. Because they're a team that let their guard down, I think, far too often. And I do wonder whether they have a mentality struggle with playing teams that are beneath them because they think they should already win. Even though they've been humbled so many times, they probably should have learned that lesson. But between Simple actually playing better as he's played more with FaZe, couple of rounds that you see like Elige and Frozen pull through, I can't say this team don't have the pieces they need to actually perform. And sure, Elige has not been the slam dunk that maybe people thought it would be in terms of like creating opportunities and creating more space for everybody else. But this team has unbelievable like X factor late round clutch capacity. Late games as well. Just between individual player IQs on this roster, you put them in a chaotic situation, a lot of the times, like, someone's going to pull off some bullshit. Because that's just the way that FaZe are, and that's the type of players that they employ.
Yeah. BDog, do you believe in FaZe magic? They've replaced NIP in that sense, right? We used to talk about NIP magic decades ago. If you're old, you'll understand that it's not always been the FaZe magicians. But yeah, are you a big believer now?
Thing is, like we spoke about, I said I'd be disappointed if Vitality don't win the major, and that is true. However, if Simple comes back from competition and wins the major with FaZe, then I'd be completely fine with that. They're just a fun team to watch, man. Like, that's the best way I can describe it, and also just the mentality shift in the team. The fact that they released this documentary. I don't know if you guys watched the documentary that FaZe put out just during Dallas, and they were basically just like, Simple really wants to win. Carragher wants to prove to Simple that he is a GOAT in-game leader, and I thought that was really telling. Like, the fact that he said, I want to prove to Simple that I am a good in-game leader, I am a great in-game leader. That speaks volumes to me, because that shows that Carragher has lost a little bit of belief in himself, which is only natural because of where FaZe have been, obviously, since Elige joined the roster, which, to be honest, I don't think it's Elige's fault. I just think it's a bit unfortunate. But you take a look at that and you think, okay, there's a lot of desire here on multiple fronts, and the romance story of it is that they can do well. I would have picked them as my underdog if I could. So I think obviously it's a good pick. I like the way Frozen's been playing. I feel like Frozen has been a lot more reliable recently, which I think has definitely helped out quite a lot. And it kind of scrubs up some of the mistakes that Simple averages because he's simple. Like when he first started playing, he was not playing great, which is expected, obviously, been a big break from competition, but Frozen was there, which is very important. And I think Rain obviously offers the ultimate backbone of this team, and naturally they're going to do better with Rain than they were with Skulls. So do I think they can go through? Yes. Will it be by the skin of their teeth? Probably. But that's FaZe, and that's how it always will be FaZe, because they always make it entertaining.
I'll just tag on here. The Frozen not only is playing better, but I think it's like very noticeable. He's being more vocal as well.
Yes,
because he understands that there's almost like a hierarchical power struggle that was like outside of Karrigan. There needed to be other voices, and Elige has been talked about as being too vocal sometimes. Maybe Frozen is sort of trying to serve as mediator, somewhere in between.
That could be the case, but I don't care what it actually ends up being. He's just been playing well. I mean, that's what I've wanted from Frozen, especially because Frozen, he kind of doesn't have that big of a difference in his stats right now compared to, like, say, last year. But like the eye test is telling you he's winning more rounds. His fragging's more impactful. Those multi-kills are actually doing something. So I've been a big fan of this turnaround for him. What I have been incredibly disappointed by, as a Simple fan, is Simple. I'm going to be clear. His decision-making is still based on the idea that he is God. Unfortunately, he's barely a demigod. He's not even, not even dipped in the river by the Achilles. He's just mostly missed the river and very fallible right now. A lot of the things he tries, especially on T-side, just fall flat. And as much as I love the energy, like, yes, go slay, believe in yourself, he's just not that guy. He's really not that guy anymore. And it's been a big problem. So
that would have been my question back to you, though. It's like, surely Simple learning on the fly by doing simple things would be better than him playing it really safe and almost not scared, but not simple, right? Surely that's better.
It is better, but I don't have 3 months for him to figure out how to play.
Fair.
I've had Dallas, which, let's be real, he was good against BC Game. I mean, if you want to cope that 1 map out of 2 against Liquid was enough to prove something to you, then fine, but it wasn't for me. And then the Heroic series, he was bad. As much as we can push a lot of the blame, deflect onto Skulls, I watched Simple's POV for a lot of that game. He just made mistakes. He tried things and whiffed. He tried dumb things and died for it. Like, there were a lot of problems in his play specifically. And at the Major, again, it's been very inconsistent. A couple of the BO1s started fantastically. Backed up the shit talk against Heroic. But then the BO3s, the 2 they lose. Who is this guy? Might as well have had Afro on my damn team. Like, it really wasn't impressive. So I'm concerned about their consistency, but I have to agree with the sentiment. They would have been my underdog pick too.
Yeah.
100% of the time. They were in a dream scenario. We did this on Retake the Week a couple Mondays ago. We were like, who's your Fairytale team? Like, if you had to pick a team to really overperform, make a run, like, who would it be and where to? It's like, me, it's FaZe, make top 4. Like, that's the ultimate, like, comeback narrative. And sure, they lose a devastating match. Everyone's crying to, like, Vitality or something in that semi. Because I still want Vitality to go win the event. I don't want it to be a farce. But that's kind of my dream. And I would have bought into the dream as well had I had the chance to. Like, I would have said, the FaZe magic pulls through. Simple has some iconic map. Somehow he brings Cash back and falls out the sky again. Something crazy. But if I had to be a realist, 'cause it's not my pick, I don't have to be a dreamer. I do have to say that the Simple inconsistencies bother me. And so I feel like that could cost them in a big enough game.
Yeah, I think just on the last point about Simple, like, when he played with the Falcons, he actually wasn't doing that. He wasn't taking risks. He wasn't playing like Simple.
A lot of his multis were like exit kill bullshit. It was so disappointing.
Yes. He was playing like turret AWPing. I'm playing within the system or the role that I'm being told to, and that was almost worse to watch because he wasn't hitting all the shots when they were coming to his bomb site. He wasn't holding his own, so to speak. So if he can't make that style work, maybe he was trying to transition or, just trying to appease the stand-in situation. But if that style doesn't work and this style is volatile, at least it's something that, can be more attributed to Simple,
Yeah.
That if he's going to go down, at least go down trying the best way you know how.
Call that a double swing.
But yeah, no, it's a fair pick, honestly, is all I can say. Because I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, me too.
That brings us back to me, actually. And, oh, Lord.
So
You
you were
were
trying to manipulate me.
Oh, a little bit, yeah. I'm not gonna lie. It's worked before. It didn't work this time. We'll see. I, I, mm, mm. I can't reliably pick any of the rest of the underdogs to go through a Swiss stage. I just can't. So I'm gonna have to be kind of mean, and basically say if this wasn't in a studio, I wouldn't have picked you. But Mongolz, welcome to my favorites. This is not the stage section of this tournament. I mean, Senzu's going to be good, so I can pick the Mongolz, and I can quite reliably expect them to make it out of this. That's been the storyline, the false narrative crafted by the evil analysts all year. Unfortunately, it's just statistically true. If you watch the events, you'll know it as well. The Mongolz struggle to get the same level out of these kids during the big stages as they do in the groups. Now, that one mental hurdle feels like the only real reason they can't go and win events. That's the craziest part, because the version of the Mongolz we get in groups is quite often on par with some of the games we get out of teams like Falcons, teams like MOUZ, teams like Spirit. It's just they can never replicate any semblance of it in the playoffs. They have a group of players who, whilst sometimes statistically not very impressive, are all incredibly mechanically sharp. Like, Techno gets a lot of flack for his stats, but if you watch, every now and then he will hit an impossible shot. And that's the sort of thing that can just turn rounds on its head. It's what makes them, if you remember that upset demolition of NAVI from earlier this year, that's the sort of thing that was happening. Like, Techno was hitting incredible shots, everyone else was still playing their great game, but you got to see the full barrage of mechanical brilliance that they can put forth at any given moment. This Mongolz team are very good at punching down, and that's what I'm relying on them to do here. We'll talk about them when it comes to playoffs, see if anyone wants to take that risk. Believe that Blitz has found the right combination of words, affirmations, maybe massages, whatever it's going to take to get that mental hurdle defeated. But for now, they're going to be my favorite pick. I expect them to take care of business in the Swiss.
Yeah, I'll bolt on very quickly because I don't, to be honest, I don't really have a lot more to say than that, apart from it's a solid favorite pick. Because I've just really been enjoying watching 910 and watching his POVs, because I was always worried with 910 that sometimes you don't get enough, and in moments he sets himself up to have this multi directly, and he'll hit the first one and it's insane, and then the second one it feels like he really overexerts himself when he doesn't need to, and maybe that's the case with some of the riflers as well, but definitely in 910's gameplay, especially towards the back end of last year, middle end of last year, it felt like he really set himself up to be in really good positions, and he just completely fumbled the bag. And it wasn't just in playoffs, it was also in group stages, and he's really worked on getting that ironed out his game. And I've now become even more of a fan of 910. The fact that he's able to adapt so frequently. So that's all I wanted to say, really. And yeah, they should make it through pretty convincingly. If not 3-0, then certainly 3-1.
Yeah, I think it's clear that the Mongolz are kind of like an adaptable team. Like, they've got a lot of good pieces that actually can pop off and actually just take a lot of unnecessary fights, but win them. Like, if Senzu is feeling on, if Blitz is feeling on, they will take a lot more risks that, traditionally in the structure of the round they may not have considered otherwise. I think 910 is another example of that, where, for a while he was very risk averse. Actually, when he first joined, he was very risk prone, and then he went almost too far the other way, and now he's sort of trying to find a middle ground. But if he's not feeling it, what they do is they just end up like hoping that Senzu is having a good game, and it's, if they want 910 to be more aggressive, they just tell Senzu to do it instead. And because they have these pieces that can be a bit more versatile and a bit more dynamic, they are actually a team that's kind of like hard to specifically anti-strat for weak links. Like, you can't, even if you look at Techno and you see him on CT sides, I think on CT he does sometimes struggle. Like, sure, he pulls off these crazy rounds from time to time, but he does struggle just to get his one on a consistent basis. Even if you try and anti-strat for that, what they end up doing is they sometimes just move him around and put other pieces in those spots. So I don't think anyone is too uncomfortable. Like, they've been working on it for quite some time. They've tried shifting their styles from blitz hard entry all the time to everybody's got a little bit of a say. It is just about whether or not everybody kind of disappears at once, because then it's like, oh, I had all these tools and now suddenly the shed is empty and I have this whole DIY project planned. So it can unfortunately blow up in their face a bit, but they're exactly where they need to be. They're a team that is consistently like a top 3, top 4 type squad right now. And I don't think there's any reason to doubt that they won't do the same here.
Yeah, there is that stylistic question that always looms over them because they do take a lot of one-up fights. You know, they don't. You see it in the stat sheet, but you also see in the demo when you're watching, like, just these pieces kind of spread out a bit, and someone will just poke, solo, prod. They're just not that trade focused. They do like to take those individual like duels, and it's because they can hit the shots. That's quite simply the reasoning behind it. If you've got a bunch of players who are that sharp and you're able to comfortably fill into a default and then allow these little risks to be taken, it can work out brilliantly. But if you're not feeling confident, you don't want to take those fights, it all kind of feels a bit redundant, and you should end up sitting still, waiting, and kind of falling flat on your face. So yeah, hopefully we get the we'll get group stage Mongolz first, and that's fine. We'll find out what comes afterwards in a later date. But yeah, pretty easy pick. BDog, you now have back-to-back again. Not again,
Okay.
but back-to-back for yourself. Yeah, who'd you like the look of?
So I've got to obviously pick favorite here, and I've got to pick an underdog. Now the question is, who do I speak about first? I'm going to pick my favorite because it's actually easier for me than the underdog pick, because there's a couple in there that I kind of like, but just because I like watching them. I'm gonna take a gamble on my favorite pick. No, not G2. I'm gonna pick Navi. I think that brutally, I think they would have been bollocked after PGL, and they would have been working very hard to make sure that that doesn't happen again. I fully expect them to. It will go two ways with them. They will either go 3-0, like nothing ever happened, like that they were the best team last year, like Alexi B is back to calling out rounds, back to JL performing above and beyond, back to Imma actually having late round good decision making, and we are 3-0, or we are 0-3 and we're bombing out the major. It's actually that polarizing in my opinion, but I'm gonna say that they're gonna go through. I think they're gonna go through pretty convincingly. I think all the prep work will be there. I think that the mentality of the team will have to be that this has to be the tournament that we do well in, or potentially there's going to be roster changes, because I don't think they are living up to the expectations that they would have had set for themselves this year, and they would have wanted to have been in that conversation of being up against Vitality, being up against Falcons, maybe even being in the same position that MOUZ is currently in, where MOUZ can only lose to those two teams. So I'm going to go with Navi. I don't know why. It's more of a gut punch, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, for me, when you talked about taking a risk, I was hovering over G2. I'm not going to lie on the graphics. I was thinking maybe he's going real deep with his swing, like really cocking that one back, going all out on that. But Navi doesn't feel that big of a risk as far as the Swiss. I mean, you painted it as a very polarized picture, your interpretation of them being 3-0-0-3, boom, bust to the maximum. I struggle to see it. They've been a far less interesting form of mediocre for me this year. That's kind of the problem. But it's also kind of what's keeping them as a team probably still united. Let's put it that way. Because if they had been full bust for this entire 6-month period, I think they'd have already started making cuts. They've already probably tried something new. But they've just been good enough where I think they're more likely to go 2-3 than 0-3 ever, in a million years at this event. I don't know, Yumi, what's your read on this Na'Vi form?
Yeah, I mean, if MOUZ only struggled with the top 3, Navi struggled with everyone in the top 8, basically. It's... Oh, God, is it bad for me to say? I think the first 6 rounds of that Nemiga game will be indicative of the entire event.
Absolutely.
For Navi.
No, I completely agree with you. That's why I said it was that polarizing.
I genuinely believe that Nemiga, if they start well in that game, could beat Navi and then put them under like incredible amounts of pressure and scrutiny. So I was hesitant to approach Navi. I do think like, it's a shame because we talk about this Navi team being underwhelming and not good enough, and I've had that same conversation with FaZe, but like the players on it are good. Like Wonderful and JL and Bit and Imma, all of these guys can carry games for you. Now, will they do it reliably, consistently? Probably not. From event to event, it does seem like it's different, but Wonderful to me actually provides such like a solid baseline. Like, sure, I have criticisms of him, but he's still like a top 5, top 7 AWPer in the world. Like he genuinely can be that good, and I think has been the one reliable piece in Navi during this sort of rocky period where the stars actually aren't showing up. Is that Wonderful can provide that baseline. It always gives them a chance to win games. So I actually kind of back the choice because I have Navi going through to those playoffs at a very minimum. But I don't think they're going to breach past the quarterfinals. Like, for me, that's probably where they fall flat again.
Hey, for me, it's difficult to see them. I don't think I have them picks going through my pickems, just a spoiler my picks. I can't actually remember what's in my pickems. I'm going to be honest, I did them this morning, and I've already forgotten what they are.
I random mine.
I decided not to random it. I thought, I'm going to give myself some credit. You know? Even though I have done a terrible job so far.
Stage 2 was nobody's fault. Most
but I cocked up stage 1 too. Like, I made some questionable stage 1 choices, to put it politely. Not sure what I saw in Metasport, but
I put them through as well. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's just sometimes you make mistakes. But Navi for me haven't been bad enough to hate this pick. That's basically where I'm at with it. I struggle to see them not making playoffs like 9 times out of 10. Maybe not 9 times. Let's call it 7 times out of 10. Because they've been mediocre enough to miss playoffs given the right seedings and matchups and things like that. It's just a question of who can step up on this team. Feels like it's been the question all year since Katowice, really. Katowice, they had a very strong level out of Bit. They got some good performance out of JL as well. And you're thinking, okay, cool. This could be the Navi we see. This is pre-Monacy to Falcons, so you'd say, maybe they'd be the 4th best team. It's also pre-MOUZ comeback, so maybe they're 3rd best in the world. It's not that bad. The fact they've slumped down to maybe 8th in most people's esteem, and they can lose to, I'm going to say, everyone in the top 6 with consistency. I'm not sure I'm going to count the Melbourne losses against them with too much prejudice. For me, it's just disappointing. It's just kind of like they've gone just desaturated in my mind. If I just think about them, they're just a bit more grey than they were before. So yeah, if we get a pop-off from Bit, if we see Bit deliver on some more of that potential, if Blade, as BDog kind of intimated, gave them a good fucking bollocking after their last disappointment, and they wake up a bit, so what if you guys are feeling kind of dejected? I mean, the morale looks low in the team. Like, you have yourselves to hold yourselves accountable. Like, this is the major. You don't want to show up and, go out whimpering. Like, you need to come out and actually have a good crack at this. So yeah, we might see a rejuvenated, maybe a little bit of a one-off sort of burst of energy to get them through that quarterfinal, maybe even upset a team here or there to a semi. I'm just a bit disappointed, it just sucks to see this team that was in certain ways really great last year not replicate any of the things that they were really good at.
One of the positives that they had when they were winning is that, they seem like a very solid vibes team. Or when they were going to finals all the time, like, vibes were excellent. But also, you look at Vitality, vibes are excellent. Now, it turns out being a successful team increases your attitude, or improves your attitude. Yeah, it's like, oh, we just keep on winning, or we keep getting to grand finals. We're pretty damn good at this. We can relax. We can all be friends. But now that there are problems, it does seem like those have compounded into more than just the Counter-Strike.
Really I will say the voice comms stuff that got blown up on Twitter was so out of proportion.
Of course.
Ridiculous. Like, come on, guys. Like, they're in a game. They're going to get frustrated, but they're not going to hate each other. They're not going to want to be angry and take it outside. Like, it's just one of them.
Getting angry on the timeline is a standard day on Twitter. So
it's just funny.
I feel like, honestly, just my last note on this, I feel like last year showed how desperate we were to have a dominant CS2 team, that we hyped up a grand finals streak to that extent. And
that's what I was saying.
That's kind of what annoyed me by the end of the year. Now we finally have a real dominant team. We can, this is proper. This is fun. But yeah, your second team, if you don't mind. Who have you got as your underdog?
I've got to pick an underdoggy, don't I? It's hard because I don't want to give away, because I'm going to pick last again, right? So I'm going to have the last go. So I don't really want to say who I like and who I don't like. Like, half of me wants to really troll, but I'm not going to. I'm going to pick, I think, a safe one that isn't FaZe, because I can't pick FaZe. I'm going to go 3D Max, because I think... Oh, no. The facial reactions there.
Can I not get, passport dibs? Like, I'm French. Can I not have them, please?
No. I'm going to pick 3D Max because I think structurally, they've looked incredibly solid ever since Body's come in. I think body slander on the timeline for Fnatic was really unwarranted. I think that whole team is just chalked, and I really like what we're getting out of 3D Max. I think they always look good in sort of every iteration of tournament that they play in, and I love the fact that they can punch up, and that's what I've been worried about for like Double Pony Heat. That was one of their issues for such a long time. It's when they got to play against the big boys, they would run it quite close, but it would never be enough. And now it feels like they really have started to have that belief in themselves, which is good to see. And even in stage 2, the fact that you run it close against Legacy, they got on 3-0, but you 2-0 FaZe, you 13-11 over Nemiga, 13-4 over Bet Boom. I mean, that Bet Boom showing was abysmal and really sad, to be honest. But what I'm glad about here is that we are just, again, getting reliable consistency out of Maka. Maka's been one of the best players in this team for, it feels like, the last 6 months. Whenever you speak about 3D Max, you have to speak about Maka because of how unbelievably good he is. I love that there's a vibes player in Gravity in this team because I feel like he complements Body really well. I love the fact that Gravity has actually got room to be a bit more expressive in the server, obviously, and out of it. But I would liken Gravity a little bit to Zontix, except that Gravity has more aggro and he's got more range for his ceiling to maybe be increased a little bit. It's just whether the rest of the team hold him back. But yeah, I like this team quite a lot. I wanted to dislike them for such a long time, not because they were French, but because they would never be able to win against the bigger opposition. It felt like there was always that ceiling. They were always like those gatekeepers of tier 2. And now they push past that narrative and they've earned a lot of respect from me. So 3D Max, cool team. Good luck. Feels like they got a good shot.
Yeah, obviously I loved this pick. I wanted them. I thought maybe you'd be like, oh, you'd be, sold on perhaps that VP streak. Maybe you'd be looking towards the upside of a Furia or Legacy. I was like, oh, maybe I can sneak them away in my next pick. But no, great choice. I mean, look, they are a team that has 5 very different players in terms of how they win you rounds. But at the same time, it comes together behind this one little Emperor leading the way in Maka, a frontline type general. And it all just makes sense. No, I'm a big fan of 3D Max, and especially the way Maka has made this team run. You're right, the Body coming in did sort of like stabilize a lot of things. I think a part of that was just getting the best out of Gravity. Like, you removed Jocko, who kind of took some of the sort of Gravity space away, and put in Body, who's just more of an all-round fill kind of player, does whatever you need him to do. And then Gravity can be more aggressive in terms of like being a very hard entry. He loves that Mac 10, just W keying around. He's got that sort of that Vega Squadron almost energy about him when he's just flying around the server with an SMG. I really like what I'm seeing from 3D Max, and just as much as they do seem to have this sort of hard cap, they're not going to punch up and beat Vitality at this event, I don't think.
No.
They're not going to do any of that stuff. But what they are going to do is play the teams like the NAVIs, the G2s, the Liquids, even the Auroras fairly close, because they're going to be very willing to go and fight them on their terms. Like, they're going to go and be like, all right, yeah, Eternal Vi, Aurora, you want to group up and hit bomb sites and play off aim? We're just going to run at you in the entry of that bomb site. Like, we're going to group up. We're all going to be there. Surprise. Here's 4 SMGs. Like, they're going to be very combative, and I'm a big fan of them. So, yeah, hopefully they can actually go through. I got a weird feeling this is another team I might have put through my Pickem. We'll see how that works out for me. But, yeah, loving what I'm seeing.
They're definitely the best team, and just doesn't in terms of style. Like, they've got their own kind of style to them that a lot of other teams struggle with in terms of consistency. Like, from event to event, you look at Navi, or look at FaZe, or you look at hell, even Vitality. Sometimes it's far more aggressive than the last tournament, or far more passive. I feel like 3D Max are actually just one of the best teams right now, and it's probably because they've done so much tier 2 at just punishing slow defaults. Like, they create plans in these mid rounds that are very gambly, very ambitious, but it wins them a lot of rounds. It wins them games very frequently as well. And because they've got so many of these different players that can actually just multi-frag independently, they're actually pretty comfortable leaving like a solo anchor in a spot or a solo mid player while they do like a 3 or 4A push or a 4B push on CT side.
It
So
reminds me a lot of Heroic, right? You know when
yeah, a
when
bit.
Heroic were like at their peak, and you have those sort of like Cadian calls where they gambly over rotate on CT. Not so much T side, but like I can definitely see like hints of that, and it did work really well. And then it's fallen out of meta a little bit, and I don't know, maybe it's just that little off brand, that little flavor that you can sprinkle in, and it's enough to disrupt to change your meta.
To be honest, it kind of reminds me of. I mean, people won't like this team, but Zero Tenacity. Like some of the risks that they take are akin to that, but to a lesser degree. Like it does.
That's fair.
It's somewhere between Zero Tenacity and Heroic. You know,
Z10's pushes are sometimes just so like
yeah,
we don't need to
outrageous
talk about it.
and stupid, and they are losing games a lot this year. But 3D Max have not been. So yeah, I think it's an astute pick. I just don't. I think they are also a team that unfortunately get punished on that timing a lot. Like, if you anticipate that they're going to do one of those mid-round moves, you just go for like a 1 minute 10 exec, and you'll catch players setting up boosts or juggling util, and I've seen them lose games because of that. So they're a squad that I think needs to diversify their playstyle in a way, even though I like watching it. So. I just feel like if they want to scale up, that's what they need to do.
Yeah, and hopefully they do. Honestly, I prefer the scene having a French team. Not necessarily on top, but at least somewhere in the top 10. It just feels right. So I'm not sure how they become that team, but they're on the right tracks. But yeah, we come back to me with some dreadful options staring me in the face. I now need to pick an underdog from this group of underdogs. No offense to these teams, I'm sure you're lovely people, but it's not easy to predict.
Yeah, well, three of them we didn't pick, and the other three I picked last time. So
yeah,
three of them we didn't even really talk about.
Three of them we completely ignored, and I think I'm continuing that trend. I'm going to take Furia.
Damn it.
Yeah,
good pick.
I'm an upside man, you know? I like some upside. And whilst this team, I've said it before, I'll probably say it again, this team cannot rely on having this Yakindar, even coming into this stage. But, to be honest, this year so far with Yakindar, they've actually not had that level. He's actually had a few quieter events where they still played pretty well. So thankfully, I know they have win cons besides him. A decent level out of K-Serato is not out the window, and Molodoy has been already a map winner, which is more than I think people had expected. I thought he had that potential in him mechanically. I just thought the playstyle was so whack coming out of Tier 3, basically where he was playing, that it wouldn't really mesh, but they've kind of bought into the playstyle. They've let him play stuff solo, they've let him just figure out where he wants to go and make plays, and just let him do what he has to do. So I think Furia have an interesting blend of star players right now to just potentially kick on and make it through to the top 8. They themselves believe they can win this event. They are, of course, delusional. That's not going to happen, not in a million years. They're not playing good enough CS for that yet.
Did they say that?
Yakindar said as much in interviews directly, and I think Molodoy. I was told by someone in my chat during a live stream, I think at some point, that Molodoy also said that he thinks they can win this major. Pure delusion.
Him.
Pure delusion. But
a healthy amount of delusion is important for competition, though.
It is.
We're all romanticizing Simple and FaZe, by the way.
Exactly, but I'm not. I don't think they can win this, but I think they could make top 8 given the right matchups, given the right seeding, cock-ups. Just need one upset really early on from like a 10 seed, and all of a sudden Furia might play someone considerably weaker in a deciding matchup and go through. So yeah, it's been a pretty interesting run since signing these two players. 4th place Astana, missing playoffs in Dallas, but they have certainly proven they've got enough upside, I think, to make this happen. It's just a bit of a prayer. I just think this prayer is better used on this team than it is on, well, some of the teams below them.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously the team that I picked as kind of an underdog in the last stage, and I just thought it was so valuable because, yeah, I mean, Molodoy and Yakindar and K-Serato, they've got so many different factors to them, and, for the longest time it was kick Fallen and get an AWP or get an in-game leader, but if he's just down to in-game leading, I don't think the system that Furia had adopted was actually that poor while Fallen was calling. Like, it took a while to get there, but the real liability was that he couldn't put up numbers, and now that Mongolz is putting up those numbers, it just feels like the rosters kind of come together quite nicely. So, yeah, this is a team that should have that ambition. I do have them making it through into the playoffs, just because I've been excited enough with the pieces and how well that they've been performing. Even in the games where I can see them in deficits, I think spirits are quite high, because it's like the first real look at Furia since the move. I think the previous events just felt a little too soon from the adoption of players that were outside of the region, because it's not just about them getting used to playing with the Brazilians. It's also the Brazilians getting used to communicating in English as well, right? So
yeah,
it's a transition, and I think they've hit a good run of form. I think people have been sleeping on this team for a little too long. Like, they should have. I think there should have been at least a little bit of dismissal of some of those previous results, and even the past history of the players, because they're just a firepower team now, and they've got a little bit more structure than some others that exist in that same realm.
Isn't it beautiful that we can speak about your Kindar potentially making the playoffs of a CS2 major again? Oh,
Or
ever since
Furia.
he left. Yeah, well, true. Mental, isn't it? I think the best comparison for Melody actually would be. Yeah, go on.
Your microphone is.
Oh no!
There you go. There you
Is
go.
it better?
You're back.
Cool.
You're back. Yeah.
Look, to be honest, for the first time in the entire episode, we'll take that all day long. Sorry, guys, I don't know what's happening. The Melody comparison, the best one I can actually probably bring parallel to would probably be Ultimate, because Liquid took a gamble on Ultimate, bringing him in from like lesser competition, even like tier 3, tier 4, and putting him straight in. And they allowed him to be aggressive for maybe like 2 events, and then they just completely stopped him. And I think that's the restriction. That was one of my biggest reservations about Ultimate's move to Liquid, was that I was so worried that Liquid would strong arm him into doing everything Liquid wanted him to do. Melody, it's the complete opposite. Fallen has, by relinquishing power over the region and allowing internationals to come in. Remember, Fallen did this before. Fallen was one of the guys, obviously had that MIBR project who was doing Tarek. Like, he international, he's been to Liquid. So he thinks this is necessary. So therefore, I love the support structure that Furia have. They bring in Yakinda because they think it's going to be a good mesh to help with Melody. They bring in Krisen, all of these people that are from similar backgrounds, similar culture, and can help embed more of the idea and also help develop the identity of these players alongside what Furia has already instilled, which, as you say, Michael, is a good structure. And what's nice there is that they're both operating under the same ideas, and they can both lean in from the international Furia bag of tricks and then the regional Furia bag of tricks. And this works a whole lot better compared to what some other teams do when they bring in talent from tier 2 and tier 3. They expect them to mold them into this player that they are not. And I love the fact that Melody has a little bit of autonomy. He wants to move a bit more with the rifle, and he has been prioritizing the AWP a lot more in tier 1 than he was in tier 2, which I think is actually very interesting to note. But aside from that, I'm such a big advocate of this Furia team, and I'm a little bit damn it as well that you guys picked them, but obviously 3D Max kind of got to go that way. But I really love the way that this team is going in the general management of it and the business side of the esports for it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it from the angle as well of like Yakinda and Molodoi can communicate in Russian.
Exactly.
Yeah, which was, something that I underappreciated at the time. I was just thinking about the player and the skill, and they just be communicating in English. But because it's a transition period, like they have, Yakinda, who's way more, I guess, has way more experience playing on international teams, can serve as like a translator, mediator as well for that transition. So yeah, it's been nice to watch them succeed a little bit.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have had this certain amount of. A hatred is strong, but a dislike of Furia in the past for just being a frustrating waste of certain players. Let's put it that way. And playing some ugly CS. So, yeah, nice to see them making steps in the right direction, winning games, playing winning CS, being exciting. So, yeah, no, I'm a believer in this move. Hopefully this will come to pass. It's a risk, though, in the underdogs that we've got here, though. Yumi, you've got 2 picks. You still have a favorite to pick.
I have a favorite and an underdog, man.
I don't think your favorite pick's that bad. If you go with who I think you should go with, I don't think it's that deep.
I mean, I'm picking Aurora. I mean, I have to pick Aurora. Yeah. I just don't know how to feel about this Aurora team is the problem. I almost think that they're past their prime. I think they had a real nice streak of events where you could see confidence was high, and that the biggest thing was, again, like we're talking about quite a few of these teams in the top 8, dealing with the stage environment and making sure that everyone is comfortable with that. It does seem like Aurora do shy away in certain moments. And at Dallas, that was the conversation revolving around their game against the Mongolz. It's like, which one of them is actually going to disappear in front of the crowd? And it turned out to be the players with more veterans on it, funnily enough. So they're in a strange place, because I think there's almost a minor crisis of confidence for them. Like, they're still a team that can beat everybody outside the top 6, actually outside of the top 4. I think they're a team that can beat everybody there, similar to the Mongolz. But they, I think, struggle just on consistency metrics, especially since Woxic has taken more of a back foot to, the Wikadia and Jota pairing alongside like Xantares. It's a very front-heavy type roster. Woxic actually was one of those people that could bring you into games sometimes, and now that he's taken more of a backseat approach, it feels like they've lost a hidden element that they could pull out on stage when they really need it.
Yeah, they're a strange team to really judge, like in terms of what you value, what you think they're going to be like. BDog, Yumi thinks they've hit sort of a low, essentially, and they're probably on the way down. Is that how you see their trajectory too, or do you have some optimism?
I've just got a gut feeling they're not going to do well. And that's why I avoided them in my favorite picks, because it'd be quite easy to look at results and say, "Oh, they're always making the playoffs. They're just going to make the playoffs again." I do have the same concerns, and I don't know why. Like, subjectively, like, this isn't even like an objective thing. Just when I watch them, I watch them sometimes, and I just think they don't deserve to be winning some of these rounds, or they don't. It feels like these rounds are not really repeatable over a long period of time. And now we have had these rounds that have been repeatable over a long period of time. I'm like, am I just bad at watching Counter-Strike, or is it the fact that they've run good for such a long period of time in 2025 and now they're going to crash? And maybe that's the pessimism in me, but I'm very concerned that if Xantares goes missing, there's no shot that this team does anything, because I'm very concerned that there's not going to be any hype in the team if Xantares goes absent. And I'm not expecting Xantares to go absent, but in the 20, maybe 15% chance that he does, you go up against FaZe, you don't win against your BO1 against FaZe, a matchup where you really, really expect Aurora, if you are Aurora, to be coming into that thinking, yeah, we've won that. Like, they've got Simple, who's just kind of washed. They just made it all the way through stage 2 by the skin of their teeth. You go ahead and you go into that BO1 full confidence, and you lose that. Given the mentality setbacks that Aurora have gone through, it would not surprise me if they don't makes playoffs, which sounds like a ridiculous take, but that's one I'm gonna die on the hill on. I don't think they're gonna make it.
I do have something else to add about Aurora, is that, when I see them on stage, I just think, part of what made this team so good is that they had that up-tempo flair to them that the Turkish scene had kind of always been known for. But they had more organized rounds. Like, they were crafting good execs in late rounds, and they were finding, good space in mid rounds as well. I just think when they get to stages, they actually lose some of that diversity. Like, they don't have that same flair. They don't have the same punchiness. Like, they get punished in the group stage too much for working the default, finding a kill in the mid round, and then pushing for more instead of using that opportunity for a man advantage, for example. I think they get in their own heads too much about how much they've been punished, that they don't take those same risks when they get to the bigger stages or they get to the bigger games. When it can, sure, it can lose you those games, but it could also win them for Aurora very frequently. I think they just need to. I think the biggest thing, honestly, for their entire game is they need to limit the amount of unnecessary traded deaths. Because they do get kills and they do get opportunities, and then they try and take space and they just die, and it's like an untradeable. It's an untradeable death, and it just feels like they're like, oh, we have an opportunity, and we're back to square one again. We have to try and find a new one.
This is what I was sort of speaking about, where I obviously didn't explain it in the best way, but like I'm saying about rounds that aren't replicable. Can't even say the word, because it's like Jota would take that space and he'd get a multi-kill and it'd be brilliant. We'd see flashes of the Wicadia when he first joined that Eternal Fire project, and we thought, damn, this kid could be potentially the new Xantares because of how frequent he was finding multi-kills. You still get flares of that, sure, but you don't get that enough to the point where it warrants you being overly aggressive, the point where it warrants you deviating and breaking away from your structure. And that's where it will fall down against some of the best teams that we're going to have in this competition. We are going to have the best teams in the competition because we're in stage 3 of the major. So that's what I'm concerned about. I'm also worried about adaptability, because I think when they play against aggro teams, I think sometimes they get caught out as well because they're not ready for some of the punchiness of the round. And that's... When you look at Legacy, you look at Lean Vision, I don't expect them to lose games to those caliber, not none whatsoever. But the way that some of these teams have been playing this major, it would not surprise me if some of the aggression did catch them out.
Yeah, all these concerns are valid. The problem is, at the end of the day, when Aurora play a game, especially with his return to form recently, only one team, typically, especially the majority of teams that are going to play at this event, only one team is a superstar rifler on the server. Xantares is back. Like, he had a massive dip, and we're not going to pretend it didn't happen. And I'm assuming his physical health was a large part of the reason why. But in Dallas, he was outstanding. I've got a feeling most teams are not going to be able to just aggro their way past that man. So I think there's an element of, yes, their style is... sometimes lacks adaptability, is sometimes too simple. You know, plan A isn't even that great and they don't have a plan B. But at the same time, they have the firepower. And that's going to be, I think, a reliable enough source for them to actually get through this period. Playoffs, they're very, very liable to be upset. Like, I've got a good feeling they won't make it past the quarterfinals, no matter the opponent. Even if they get a relatively easy one, I think they're going to struggle there. But in the Swiss, man, they are... just too many headshots. There's just too many headshots for the strats to matter enough, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I picked him, so...
Yeah, no,
God bless.
You're going to be fine.
I'm caving. I picked him reluctantly last time. I'm picking him again. I'm going VP in my underdogs. This is less to do with the fact I don't believe in the other teams. It's partially that, but I think the good news for them coming out of that group stage, or rather stage 2, was that Electronic was playing very, very well independently, and that's maybe even a sore spot for them moving into stage 3, where can that be reliable or consistent enough? Because I still think that there's issues to be had with how they're trying to set up their star pieces. You know, Flit and Fame, I think are the combo I'm trusting in at the moment, because I think Flamus, I don't know, he's I don't know if he's been ostracized or what, but he just his fights don't look fun, and when they go for execs with him, it just doesn't feel like it sets him up properly. But between Flit and Fame, based on what I've seen so far, and based on the way that they've been kind of upticking in general, this is an acceptable VP that we saw coming out of stage 2, and I just hope that it kind of transitions to stage 3, simply because that combo alongside Icy as like a floor actually can be enough to get past most of the teams at this event. You know, even the G2, the Liquid, to punch into top 6 and get into playoffs. I think VP have enough to get through there.
If this is replicated, yes, definitely. Problem is, this is the most anomalous result any team at this event has had all year. Like, their stage 2 level.
You don't think Legacy 3-0 was far more anomalous?
No, that's how shit VP have been
crazy.
all year.
That's crazy.
Flamus
that's an outrageous take
at this event. I don't care, outrageous or not. They've been so mid, and they sweep through off the back of Electronic playing some of his best CS statistically ever. bollocks. Bollocks to all of this. I don't think they're going to keep this going. If they do, sure, they're making top 4, but they won't. That's quite simply my read on this. This cannot maintain. You can't magically just decide you're good again. I refuse. So if they do maintain it, it's not for the good of the game. Let's put it that way. This is just outrageous. I don't like this at all. Yes, certain pieces played, I think, almost free at the last stage. It felt like something was just different mentally almost. But
like nothing to lose Counter-Strike, right?
Exactly. It feels like 2 moves have already been confirmed, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, we're already cutting Flammus and whoever else. Screw it. Let's just ball. And I just don't see it maintaining. This is an absurd anomaly, and I don't think it maintains.
Maybe Electronic's not calling anymore.
With the way some of these, the way it's looked, it might be just like flit calling or something for all I know. This is just not how things work. I refuse. So, BDog, I'm sure you have, clearly, based on your reaction to my take, more positive things to say than I do. You're not quite as offended by this outlier, but yeah.
No. I'm not offended by it, but I do agree with you that it's not maintainable for stage 3. The only way it is maintainable for stage 3, in my opinion, is if they win both their best of ones. Because best of 3 against Pain, they look really rocky. Like I feel like bare minimum that should have been a free mapper. Bare minimum that should have been a challenge. But they were able to find a way to win in OT, and that's good for them. But it didn't look comfortable in the best of 3s.
No.
And the best of 3s is where they've been really punching downwards, where Flammus is just I really want Flammus to do well, and I really want Icy to do well, and I've always had this little like running commentary in the background with me and Michael where I think Icy's good, he thinks Icy's mid. Icy has been mid, and I'm happy to admit that he has been mid, but I enjoyed watching Icy in stage 2 because I think he did do a lot of the things a supportive AWPer should do, and he went for a few more opening kills. Unfortunately, they didn't really work out, but he did go for a few more, which is nice. So I'm kind of in the same vein of you guys as terms of like it. I'm there with Michael in terms of I think it was really cool that they did that. I don't think they make it to playoffs, but the only way they make it to playoffs is if they win both their best of ones, because the BO freeze is where they're going to fall down. So that's where I'm with you, T. But I don't know where I want to put this team, but I don't have in my mind. I'm like, it doesn't make sense that they would go through to playoffs. So this is why in the major that makes no sense, they're probably going to go to playoffs.
For me, it was basically between that and Pain. Like out of the underdogs that remained, those felt like the 2 most compelling cases, and I don't know. I mean, Pain were good, but VP also kind of tantalizing for the same reasons. Like, I don't think Pain have been that good. Neither have VP. But I can trust in the track record of VP maybe more reliably than I can for Pain.
Yeah, we're not exactly picking between the prettiest of roses.
Yeah, exactly.
Splitting hairs there. Like, neither one's had a great track record. But yeah, I think it's to kind of like by default concede maybe slightly better. For VP, they've taken care of business against some weaker teams at events. Top 8 at Bucharest. It's not completely insignificant. There has been something going on there relative to Pain. So no, fair enough on that pick. I've now got to pick an underdog, and I've been so wrong in underdog picks at this event. That's been my biggest weakness, really, is the underdog picks. And then I'm just going to go all in and pick a team I don't really believe in. But my beliefs have quite often led me astray during this event. I'm going to take Nemiga. I didn't think they'd make it through the stages they've made it through. None of them. I didn't have them going through at all. And yet here they are, just smirking at me, And I bet you now that I pick them, they're just going to go 0-3 straight home. But I can't let it happen again. I can't ignore this team, overlook them, play it off as like, oh yeah, Zway's an up-and-coming talent, but how good is he really? He's really fucking good. That's the problem. Like, I feel kind of like a bit of a dickhead, like saying that I do scouting content and then having been kind of slow to the Zway hype train, but he really is that good. The biggest disappointment for me really at this event I think Xanta's sold a few maps, like a few, like especially in his CT positions. He's been overly aggressive. It's like he's just bought into his own style to the maximum. Like that kind of made him successful earlier in CS2 with Nemiga. This sort of aggro anchor almost, is very combative, wants to be on the front foot. I feel like that has let him down in a few games, but overall, Nemiga just played really good CS. I have to give credit to Lear. I think Risky Bob's had big impact. Khan has been surprisingly good.
Yeah.
And it's not all been on a rifle. Like, he's had good rifle rounds where I'm like, there he is, there's Khan. But then he's taken the AWP out and got triple kills. And I'm like, sure, he's just pivoting between line to line, but he's just shooting in the right places.
He's actually like insta-killing people as well. Like, I think that's his reaction time feels sharper.
Like, has he got a new prescription? Like, what's going on? How is he this quick? You know,
he might just be a LAN player, to be honest.
He could just be a LAN player. It could be a big difference that he's just now on LAN and doesn't have to deal with some sort of delay as tiny as 100 milliseconds feels. It is a big deal. So no, this Nemiga has played way better than I thought they would. And it's not just some individual overperformances. It is just they're playing good CS and therefore they're winning. So I have to give them full credit. I have to take the pick and kind of eat crow because I didn't believe in them in stage 1 or stage 2.
That's valid. They remind me a lot of 3D Max actually in terms of like some play style, because I think they do try and sort of press the envelope a lot, as you're saying on CT. I think they're definitely a LAN team because they did exactly this at Res Showdown last year.
Yeah.
And Khan was very good in that event. And then he comes here and I think, oh, you've been so mid online. And you're not even picking up the AWP. I don't want to believe in you at all. And then he just owns. And it's like, well, it's like, this, again, it's just completely nonsensical. And I do, obviously, the show with Tech Girl. We talk about so many this pro. Zwei was never on my radar because I was like, yeah, he's cool, but he's not Flamus. And now he's better than Flamus at this event. But nothing makes sense. But he definitely deserves his flowers. I'm glad you spoke about Lear a little bit because the guy brings so much to this team in terms of vibes. I can't believe how his trash talking is so creative and just so cringe, yet it's funny.
Yeah, if he stands up and just stares at a team again, like, I swear, I'm gonna pull his jersey down. Like, come on,
if he stands up and just starts gesturing the taxi, like, if someone did that to me, I'd be so mad. Like, if someone did this to me like an Epic LAN, I'd be so angry. But then, like, I'm watching it from like a third party, and all that's so cringe. That would rattle the hell out of me. So yeah,
if I had a wireless mouse, I'd chuck it at him. Like, I'd be so
it's like, it's so annoying.
Dude, joke's on you. I'm not giving that shit back.
What I love about Nemiga, and yeah, Xanta did sort of like troll a few rounds, and they weren't trivial rounds either. But what's good about Nemiga is they've got their own identity, and they are not afraid to play their Counter-Strike DNA that they've been forming over a long period of time with Box, with the pieces that they've had, and they are expressive enough to the point where you can get Khan going on the rifle if it's not hitting with the AWP, and it's completely fine. It doesn't detriment this Nemiga team. But what I love is the fact that they have maintained the same level of Counter-Strike they've been playing online to LAN. It feels like we've not really invented the wheel here for Nemiga. It's just we've believed in ourselves. We've played our own game, as cliche as it is, but they've got better because of it. And I'm really glad that it hasn't been a complete just sort of dimension shift for them.
Yeah. All right. We have one last pick to actually make for the show. That's going to be BDog yourself. You got an underdog. We've left you with some stage 2 miracle runs, basically. Who'd you like the look of?
I'm surprised no one picked Pain. To be honest, I thought VP Pain, one of them would be floated, and I'd have to go VP, and I wouldn't want to go VP. But I'm glad because I'm a Pain enjoyer, so I will probably quite literally pick in this team, but I will pick them. I am right in the boat with Big Uzira about the fact that they should have made this change a lot earlier. I was upset when they dropped Kowers, but I could kind of see why they dropped Kowers because the roles with him and Snow, they were overlapping. They would change it from event to event sometimes. Like the amount of overlap and variation, especially on CT sides, like they would play. One of them would be in a star rifle role, and the other one would be in like an anchor, and it would make no sense. And then they'd go to Mirage. Snow would be short, and then Cowards would be Con one event, then they'd switch, and then they'd go to Inferno, and Cowards would play in Pit, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it literally makes no sense. So they dropped him. They've had all this trial and tribulation with the standing. They eventually settled on DGT. I think DGT's solid because he brings a lot of experience. I actually think Pain were lacking a bit of experience, even bringing in Davideus, because sure, he's played a lot locally and domestically, but internationally, he's not really been there. DGT's got a little bit more of that to be with Big Uzira, and you can help develop Snow. And I think the biggest issue for Pain and the teething troubles they faced was that they had too many, I guess, high risk volatile players that you needed to create and foster a good environment with. And if it works, it works. And that's fantastic. You hit the ground running and you go. And if it doesn't, it's really going to stagnate developments. They pulled the plug on it early and they said, you know what, we've got more belief in Snow. So hit the road, Cowes, and we'll pick up a guy that's got a bit more experience. So I like it. I felt like they were hard done by in the VP BO3. I actually think they could have gone 3-0 in stage 2. And then I think a lot of people would be looking at them in a different light. So this is mainly just biased and vibes, but I've always enjoyed watching Pain. So they're open. I'm going to have to pick them.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team that we've talked about a lot on this program or this show, but not so much recently because of all the roster shenanigans that they seem to be going through. And it all started with Lux and his removal at first. So, I mean, to be honest, it did feel like that move and bringing in Davideus was actually supposed to provide that like you're talking about experience in DGT. Like they thought Davideus was going to kind of be that guy, and I think it's something that me and T have talked about before. Is that in terms of leaders on the team, it did feel like it was only Big Uzira and nobody else. So the fact they have Digit or DGT is really good, just simply because he's also like a very crafty mid-round player. If there is space and he feels like he has a timing, he will call a pause to everything and they'll explore that opportunity. Like he's a very risk-oriented player, and he's pretty damn good at it. You know, he's kind of like Uruguayan Nerds almost, like some of the ways that he plays out mid rounds. So it's cool because it gives him another weapon, but it does make this team far more interesting from the heights that they can get to. My problem on this roster is actually Snow. I have not liked him for a while now. Like, sure, young player, very very good like capabilities against other South American players, but as an anchor, he's actually just not very good. Like I see this guy make so many mistakes, and then you'll see like 5 rounds in a row where he struggles to get 1 kill, and then you'll see one round where he gets a triple kill, and it's a highlight, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, Snow is the best." And he can definitely have games where he takes over, but those are so far and few between. I actually think the Cowes him swapping was, I mean, probably to try and help both of them at the same time, because I almost think Snow is a better rotationary player.
Yeah,
but he's only just becoming good at doing that. Like he only has started to like understand the timing that he has to hit and the decision making that comes with being a rotator more as he's been given that opportunity. So
he was never that player though. That's the thing. Like he was like entry, like star player for like a very long time.
But he was hard anchor on CTs.
Yeah, which is why it was weird. But also like I don't know why he's ever been put in a hard anchor spot to begin with, because he shouldn't be. Because I suppose you can put your star rifler in like solo anchor spots and expect him to do a job.
I'll like Heavy God or something, or MOUZ.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't see him as that. I agree. I see him a lot more as rotational, because what does he get then? He gets guidance from the other pieces, right? You get, oh, actually, no, we do need you over here, come through, and then you can set him up to get this multi-kill, rather than all the individual decision making being on him. So that's kind of why it's a sticking point for me as to why he is that anchor player, because I feel like he's been misrolled there, and he's been misrolled quite a lot just in the identity of Pain through, I don't think his fault, but also maybe his fault, because you are a new guy, a young guy getting put into one of the biggest rosters in South America. You're going to be a yes man. Like that's the reality of the situation, is you're going to be a yes man. You're going to do whatever they say, and it will in turn hinder your progression as an individual, but also as a player.
But I think as a star, like we've seen a shift in Counter-Strike for a while now, where star players are anchors a lot of the time. If you think about Inferno, you think about like Nuke, you think about Anubis. A lot of the sticking points on these maps are star level players because you want them alive in late rounds if their bomb site's not being hit, and you want them on the bomb site that's being hit actually. So
he's not that guy though. So let's be malleable a bit.
Yes, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, paint a bit exciting, just in this little brief window. I really liked that we got a great level of NQZ. I think DGT has sort of found his roles. I think in some places, I think he's taking fights that I used to see Big Uzira take, where it feels like Big Uzira is now more of an IGL and not by necessity because his team's all inexperienced and has no idea what they're doing, kind of trying to do everything. Because there were times, even as recently as this year, I feel like, where there were games which were he had to outcall and outfrag the other team. But at this level, this major, we've seen a lot more production from his pieces, so I'm happy with that. I think Payne's a solid pick. I would have gone with them any normal day, but if I hadn't had 2 stages spit me in the face and tell me you need to pick Nemiga, yeah, would have gone for it. Normal circumstances would have gone for it. I have liked the way they've played. They've been really strong. But this is the way it goes with the bottom end of the underdog. Sometimes you get sillier reasons for taking a team.
Yeah, and so like this does make all of our picks now concluded, but we have also avoided talking about Lin Vision and Legacy for basically all the shows.
Do we have to talk about them? Just have to, out of politeness at this point.
I mean, just out of necessity to like, they're here. Like Legacy 3-0'd in the last stage as well. It's kind of outrageous to think that they've made it as far as they have from stage 1, considering Lin Vision are the second best Chinese team in the world, and Legacy aren't even like really a top 3 team in South America. Maybe now.
Yeah, now they probably are, but prior to this fill-in, let's put it that way, prior to them having to be called up in the place of Bestia, who didn't get their visa stuff sorted in time, yeah, I wouldn't have had them this high. My story with Legacy was consistently, I know DuMao and Lato are talented, but how many rosters can they go to, dumps to Brazil, come to national events, and then be mid before I just give up on them? And for me, this felt like just was going to be that again. Even after they make it through stage 1, I kind of put the blame on, having an Imperial domestic matchup, getting a choke out of Wildcard, which doesn't actually seem that hard. As soon as you put a little bit of pressure on Wildcard, they're going to choke, it seems. And then a Chinggis Warriors BO1 win. You're like, this isn't exactly the most impressive resume. How can they really build on from this? And yeah, they just go 3-0. So I guess the read was all wrong. But for me, it's just it's a manifestation of the talent. Talent's always been there, but finally it's manifested into a result. And that result is a stage 2 3-0. I don't know, BDog, are you more excited than that for this team, or is this also the end of the road for you?
I had them 0-3 in both stages, so like, that speaks to
stage 1 I didn't, but stage 2 I did.
Stage 1, I actually had them in... stage 2, I put them in 3-0 to begin with, because I was like, lol, that's funny. And I was like, come on, let's be realistic. And I put them in 0-3. So, amazing. I agree. Like, DuMao Lato, good, sure. Like, Lux, really inconsistent player. Like, has got a lot of experience, sure. But to then almost like bind a spell on this roster and lift it into 3-0 territory, lift it into stage 3 of the major, where you're not even supposed to like be here. No, not sold on it. Nissim is mid as hell, and yet he's doing fine. Like, I don't know. Respectfully, Legacy, you're never for me. And I'm surprised you're here. Cool, you're here. Cool, you're in stage 3 of the major, but you ain't making playoffs. Like, you're not doing it. Clip me all you want. You're not making playoffs.
Oh, yeah, we'll love that if that does happen. I mean, I think this is all this has done is told people more and more that DuMao is the truth on this roster, and that's kind of all I've got. Like, Lux as a caller actually isn't doing a bad job either, because they're not playing the most organized Counter-Strike, but he is commanding his troops quite well, and it's just it's kind of an inspiring journey. If nothing else, it's an inspiring journey. They weren't supposed to be here, but they've taken the opportunity, they've ran with it, and you just know. I saw this tweet that still just makes me laugh. You just know that Bestie are sitting at home pissed as hell right now. Like, they're like, how? That should have been me, man.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
They
is...
were 0-3 as well.
The next time they play each other at Fire League or something, oh, that's going to be spicy. No one's going to watch, but it will be spicy.
Yeah, all 400 bettors will be entertained. But yeah, I think it's just fun that they're here. It's a little surprising. This should be the end of the road though.
Should.
And Lin Vision have gotten through with by sheer fucking will. So
straight vibes and pure energy. That seems to be all they have, really. But it's working. It's really working. I mean,
they're the next Brazilian team now. Have you seen all these Brazilian interviews?
Yeah,
yeah. Amelia
fucking
wearing a
insane.
Brazilian shirt as well.
Yeah.
Everybody's been. It's like, oh, we lost G, but we've gained Amelia.
You see him
Yeah.
kiss Fallacy's hand as well after
Yep.
winning the VO1.
Just a strange dude.
He is a strange dude. I still remember at Asian Champions League, he would just, every time the cameraman was on him, he'd just always stare into the camera. He wouldn't blink. He'd try and do that whole like Carrigan aura thing, and now it's like it's manifested at the major tenfold. Like he's fully lent into the edginess of it. But maybe that ACL final broke him, because yeah, they were pretty sad after that one.
Yeah, his jumping up on desks is something he can get away with at his stature. Let's put it that way. Those desks definitely hold him up. I couldn't get away with the same trick. Someone who's 4 inches and probably about 30 kilos heavier than he is. But no, it's been fun to watch him. Let's put it that way. They've had a certain amount of flair, certain amount of passion brought forward. I mean, we've seen some fun stuff out of Starry, which is nice. Like a reminder that he actually is pretty talented.
Yep.
It's nice to see that come back.
But I think the reason as well that he's like gotten out of his shell is that he's actually playing very well. Like coming out of that second stage, he by far had like these crazy rounds of impact, which is very, very good to see, because he was actually a player that used to play like extremities that made loads of mistakes and never really learned, but has grown into that. So it's a cool journey for him, and kind of akin to the legacy guys. Lato, I don't know that I necessarily hold him in the same regard as Dumao, but he also had a very good stage. So
yeah,
they have these players that are experiencing new heights, which is interesting.
Yeah, obviously anyone who pays attention to the global offensive subreddit will have seen, I think, some sort of post from him talking about, finally he can prove to his parents it was worth doing. Can actually help them out financially as well. That's all very nice. I mean, obviously he could have helped them out financially the second he qualified for the major. The sticker money comes in, boosh. Probably a good amount sorted, but yeah, we'll have to see it. Let's talk about the pair of teams that I've dubbed the fake favorites, because they're favorites. Neither one of us, none of us picked them, and it's kind of hard to envision them in the same way we envision the other, the top 6 that we have here. Anyone got any belief in these two teams to make some sort of run happen, or is it just maybe if there's a miracle they could do something?
I think it's very easy to. I think to me it's very easy to see G2 or Liquid take like a Navi spot. If I have to try and like create my playoffs, I could see that shifting somehow, or maybe even an Aurora, like depending on how much we believe they're actually on a downward trajectory. I think there's a real possibility of that, because I think Liquid are maybe underrated. I think they're weirdly a team that actually have enough firepower and honestly a good enough caller that they could have figured something out by now.
Oh, so the Shui announcement's official as well. He's officially a Liquid player now. I wonder if they wanted to do that to give them a bit of like permanence, sort of, for ahead of stage 3. I wonder if that is a thing. I just don't believe in the Liquid team. I haven't for a while. Whenever I watch them, I'm just disappointed, so I've just given up on them. That's how I feel. Twist decided to become an in-game leader and just tank his individual form for like 6-7 months was disappointing, and then I just got bored. And the fact that MOUZ looked better without Shui, I think, is a testament to them, but also maybe Shui is a cooler. It can be a little bit strict, and then you saw that conversation with Ultimate. For G2, I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's Snacks. Haha, Snacks very funny. Snacks can play well sometimes, but probably doesn't play well. Drops like a 0.7. I can't see it, guys. I just can't. I can't. I look at it and I think, oh, maybe if MOUZ pops off, but he's not been doing that. He's been slumping. Maybe if Heavy God has a good series, cool. I just think the AWP downgrade you've got in Hades, which I mean, it feels like a bit like a device Nork situation for poor Hades, even though he's only on loan. It's like, okay, well, you got to fill Manasu's shoes now, and the whole team's just sort of a wreck, and there's no real calling on this team. Good luck.
He does know that some pious be leaving though, so
True. Also, yeah,
yeah, some pious be coming for his spot. So you know, maybe it's all no holds barred.
Up, yeah. I can't see either of these two teams making it. I'll have Aurora over NAVI if even though I pick NAVI, if NAVI go for that downward trajectory, I'd have Aurora over them. So
yeah,
I don't know. I struggle with both of these teams.
See, I'm on the same page as you, Yumi. I do think Liquid are underrated. I think especially if you look at the stats, you look at like some of the metrics, you're like, this team they've actually gotten, in the events they've had Shuhei, they have a worse round win rate. That feels ridiculous.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
On the surface, then you see the games they play, and I'm starting to watch some of Nertz's games, and I'm like, some of the impact is still there. As much as Twist still feels like the only star on Liquid right now, some of Nertz's impact, the fights that he wins that help you win key rounds, he's still going for them. He's still winning them. Like, not as frequently, but it's still there. I think Liquid do have more upside than we're probably expecting to see from them, and part of it's going to be also Shuhei taking more and more control of the team, you know, really getting used to the players he has, what they like to do, how they like to play. I think that's also going to come to bear with a more effective Liquid at this event. And on the opposite side, I think G2 also have a lot of potential, but it's in the complete opposite. It's just raw explosiveness. And look, they have had a slight uptick, I think, in certain like CT play since Hunter explicitly took control of that. And I think their run to, what was it? Was it Bucharest for their second? I think sure that despite that was being potentially a bit of an easier bracket, I think they still showed they could play a level of CS behind these two very explosive riflers that could get you to a playoff berth here. So I do think G2 as well have unrealized potential that can definitely show itself here. And once you get to the big stages, we've seen Hunter overperform on a major stage before. And so from that point onwards, they become a different kind of threat, really, to everyone. But I think both these teams, for different reasons, are getting slightly overlooked. I don't think I would have taken them over either one of my teams. I think you could have made a case for them over Na'Vi or Aurora, depending on how much you believed in it. Depending. That's a very individualistic thing. I probably could have convinced myself to pick, especially a G2. I'm a MOUZ MD guy, you know. So, no, that's
huge
where I
snacks
kind of
believer too.
Oh, I famously love snacks. Definitely didn't laud it as the worst roster move ever made. I definitely didn't say that on camera. So yeah, no. Love snacks. That's definitely why I'm picking them.
Yeah. Reparations.
All right, that's going to wrap up the show. Yeah. Those are our picks. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Tell us in the comments who made the wrong picks. Basically, what your takes are, who you would have picked in which position. Sub for more content. Remember that members get access to a bunch of special privileges, rights, and bonus content on top of everything else. So please do support the channel. Big thank you to BDog for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on again. Hopefully, I can beat you this time, like I did last time. But with that being said, let's go watch this major. Man. Let's enjoy it. And hopefully get some Pickems correct this time. Goodbye.